And bam, Slent, Rhoda. Nothing like British, Swedish speed metal from Bosnia to kick this show off here at the top of the hour. KRFF 95.9, LPFM Moorhead, Fargo, 701-478-4959 is where you're at. RadioFreeFargo.org. That's streaming anywhere in this beautiful world. And it's beautiful here in Fargo, and I welcome everybody to get in here and hang out for an hour with me. Side Stage with Trav is noon to 3 every Thursday. Automation for an hour, and then 4 to 5. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. I'm Wilson. We'll talk about Canna-Talk. We'll talk about cannabis in North Dakota. Canna-Talk ND. Wilson, you got it. Boom. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about for sure. You know, I mean, locally, I don't know. There's almost so much stuff to talk about. At 420, we'll open a big fat bag of cannabis news, and this Thursday's no different. It's, again, a beautiful day here in Fargo. I hope the sun is shining in your life. If it isn't, go outside because it's shining out there. See what I'm saying? We talk about cannabis in a positive light. This Thursday is no different. Now, some people might tell you this is the best time to be homeless, but if you don't feel that way, the New Life Center helps people who are homeless and hurting go from merely surviving to truly thriving. Their aim is to help people in need discover value and find hope. The New Life Center has evolved into a multifaceted emergency and crisis service center. To learn more about NLC, visit their website at www.fargonlc.org or give them a call at 701-235-4453. And like every Thursday, this show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy, most notably the Becky's Body Butter. You know, there's a whole line of holistic products, but you'll want to start with that one. I don't have the thing to read, but you can go to Odds to Ends in West Fargo. They got it there. And then Tochi Products has got it right outside downtown here. And they have the ND for Freedom of Cannabis petition that you're going to want to get in there and sign. So while you're in there, why don't you check out my sponsor, Becky's Body Butter, Black Cottage Alchemy, also online. Thank you, and keep pushing. Orange Records also has the petition. I believe there's other people, and I might get a list, you know, and be a little more thorough. But I know downtown you got Tochi Products, and you got Orange Records where you can go and get the petition signed. Every Thursday, Canna-Talk ND, we talk about cannabis in a positive light. It's 420 degrees here in the studio. I'm dressed appropriately, and I hope everybody out there is too. Now, I want to say this before I go to the musical break. House Bill 1420, as everybody know, made it to the Senate. The Senate voted on it today with a resounding boo. They're not ready for it. They just blew it out the door. If there was, say, 40 senators, say like maybe 10 of them voted for cannabis legalization. So that means, what it means is the people have to come back now. That's where, I mean, they kind of have called the bluff. And they're like, well, why don't we wait until that person-driven initiative gets a little closer to scaring us? So I think they need scared a little bit. And you out there, the sound of my voice, should start scaring them. Like calling them, emailing them and say, thanks for not pushing it through. Because then it'll be easier for the ND for Freedom to get in. Stuff like that. I didn't think it all the way through. But anyway, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday. We talk about cannabis in a positive light, and this Thursday is no different. 420, we'll open a big fat bag of cannabis news. Again, you're probably reeling from the fact that the state government let us down. I'm sure that took a lot of you guys by surprise. Oh, no, the government let us down. I'm not surprised, and I'm not so sure. I'm kind of glad, and I'll tell you why I'm kind of glad that sucker didn't get all the way through. We'll talk about that at 420, of course, but I've got a musical tune I want to play. This is called, and I'm a witty guy, I'm a punny guy. So when I tell you this is by the native Howl, and it's called Harvester of Constant Sorrow, you know it's coming. And then I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Harvester of Constant Sorrow, the native Howl. Now if that doesn't get your blood pumping, you are dead. But anyway, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday. That's what you're strapped into here. Stinky Arts Music Mart right after this. Then we got Locals on the 8th and then Radio Free Madness, I believe, to wrap up your Thursday. I hope everybody is feeling groovy and feeling groovy. I'm feeling groovy. Let's all feel groovy. I just wanted to mention quickly, so we don't have to talk about it at 420, the fact that House Bill 1420 is no longer with us. So, if you went to bed, and here's what happened. Last week, you might think I was really for it. I mean, I'm for all progress that allows people to be available, allows them to have cannabis available to them. Everybody, I would prefer that you can grow it and that small businesses are promoted and, people that, don't have a lot before now get that option. That's what I'm thinking about, but it's almost like, when you go home with, the lights are just right in the bar. I mean, this guy's looking at you just right. You can see the muscles, just vibrating out of his neck. And then when the light of the dawn shot, when the crack of his dawn shows in the morning, and you look at your Top Gun, he looks more like Flop Gun. Am I right? And I think that's what was up with HB1420. It looked good, and you want to have access to cannabis, but then the more I looked at it, the more people posted stuff. It really was. It wasn't good. And I'll tell you a couple things. I'll read you a couple things out of it that makes me say that. Section 14 of the House Bill 1420, subsection 12, says the organization may not pay wage loss benefits if the wage loss is related to the use of presence of medical marijuana, of usable marijuana or adult use cannabis products, or the presence of THC. So basically, again, that it absolves all the big guys from any sort of liability. But workman's comp, they pay into the state, they can get out of it because of this section. It has nothing to do with you. It has to be the man. And then Delta 8, that would also be no longer available to you. And if anybody has used Delta 8, because of the Hemp Act, it's an actual concentrated THC that really takes care of business. So if you could go out and get a flower right now, say at a local place, you can get a flower like CBN, CBG. Then you get a full spectrum, CBD, oil, whatever, and then you vape that Delta 8, son, you're straight. You almost don't need it legalized. I mean, you got to buy extra stuff. But check it out. Delta 8, a full spectrum capsule, and then a flower of CBG, CBN, and you're going to forget that this House Bill 1420 never made it. Because quite frankly, Delta 8 is the shining armor in this whole thing. And governmental control is not what we want. You see what I'm saying? So because of that, let's just give HB 1420's failure a hand. And we'll move on to decrim. That's coming up next week, and that's going to be a good one. We'll talk about that at 420. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Going to hit some jazz for dad ass. Here's Painted Paradise. I'll see you, then we'll do it. And we're coming to the end. Painted Paradise, Eero Inagaki and his Soul Media. That was pretty groovy. That gets me set up to talk about cannabis, which we do every Thursday at 420. I open a big fat bag of cannabis news, and this Thursday's no different. I'm going to play the intro. Oh, I'm going to say that on Canna-Talk ND on my Facebook page, now Canna-Talk ND on YouTube, you can go there and listen to this without the music tomorrow. And ND for Freedom, I posted up the voting thing on which senators voted no for House Bill 1420 and which ones didn't. So if you want to figure out in your district if you've got a loser for a senator or not. But anyway, 420, we're going to talk about cannabis right on the other side of this thing. I feel real legit when I play music like this and then I talk over it. I feel like Rush Limbaugh a little. I look like him too. Three of you that have seen me know that I am almost a Rush Limbaugh lookalike. They call me Wilson Limbaugh behind my back.
Yo, it's Wilson from Canna-Talk ND. You know, the super awesome show you're getting ready to listen to. I think you should go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll wait. Okay, enjoy the show.
And here we are, huh? We've made it. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every stinking Thursday, and we got a lot going on. And like I said, House Bill 1420, there wasn't very many senators that voted for it. I think 10. So it is what it is. But again, I think it's it was like a wolf in sheep's clothing. I think once you took the clothes off House Bill 1420, it was an ugly, stinky hoe bag, if I can say that, on Radio Free Fargo 95.9. LPFM. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. We're going to talk about cannabis in a positive light. I just wanted to get that thing out of there. House Bill 1420, we got nothing on the on the board for any sort of decriminalization. We got the decrim coming, but chances are that'll get voted out, and then we'll be back to just having Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act out there, back to the people. So the people just got to rise to the occasion. I say we should go for it. And besides, maybe they just weren't scared enough, because it seemed like they were hesitant and they wanted to put something on the board. But I almost was going to tell you guys today, if they hadn't voted on it, to call them and tell them no, that you're not going to do it, or just don't say anything, because if you called them and said, listen, it's a stinker, don't vote it, I almost feel like they would have voted yes then, if you felt that it shouldn't have went through. Now, I think any progress is progress, don't get me wrong, but that decrim looks pretty good. Looks like you can adjust the amounts you got to pay. But anyway, if we don't want to get too depressed, so we're going to stay over in Minnesota. Minnesota passed through another fourth committee. Apparently there's like 15 committees. This is a marijuana moment. But we'll get to South Dakota after this, and then we'll head way out. I got Scotland news. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, okay? But anyway, I suck at accents. But anyway, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Every Thursday, 4:20, we talk about cannabis. So House Bill 1420, that's a no more. There's a decrim that'll come next week, and then it'll be voted on the Senate floor. And then otherwise, Canna-Talk ND for Freedom, which is petitions are out. Get in there, sign some. Tochi, Orange Records here in Fargo. And let's show them how how the people do. Because in the end of the day, it seemed like they were doing us a solid, but the government never really, it's almost like they dangle the carrot, but it's actually made of aluminum foil, But they're already gone by the time you realized it isn't a carrot. But anyway, House Majority Leader Ryan Winkler, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and other lawmakers filed the measure last month. It would allow adults 21 and older purchase, and then 8 plants, so we know that. And then the House Agriculture, Finance, and Policy Committee heard testimony. They voted 8-5. But as you can see, like these committees, like House Bill 1420, they, you know what I mean? They didn't really come to an agreement, but it doesn't have to have an agreement to go to the floor. It just, the people that are going to vote on the floor get to, they get a sense for what that bill, if it's good or not, but committees aren't make or break, but 8-5 is pretty good. So anyway, the panel approved an amendment that refines the definition of hemp and lays out the process. So legalization of adult use cannabis is coming to Minnesota one time or another, says Winkler. But what I wanted to point out is, and this is him talking, we've heard consistently that a cannabis marketplace is an opportunity for small and medium-sized Minnesota businesses to be successful, to create jobs and opportunity through Minnesota. Hear, hear. That should resound. If we could get something stamped on the forehead of North Dakota government, it's this. We need to create jobs and opportunity, not just give it to the guy with the most cash because it'll be the least amount of hassle. Sure, you give Curaleaf all the Curaleaf will give you the millions right now. They'll write you the check. But it's not personal. They're not creating jobs and opportunity. It's only for them, to have a bigger lake cabin on a homemade lake. So I'm more for this. I don't want I don't want legislators to be able to sleep well at night knowing they gave the legislating, license to billionaires. So they don't have to worry about any hassle. I want a politician that will work with us and move through with us to motivate the small and medium-sized North Dakota businesses to be successful. So the legislation next heads to the House Environment and Natural Resources Finance Committee. Winkler's bill is introduced, was identical to a proposal last year, but we don't need to keep going through that. So anyway, I'll keep you updated as we go. 15 more committees or whatever. But South Dakota, what a pile of pooey-poo. You know what? Forget that. I'm going to talk about Scotland's. This is from the Scotsman. Scotland's first medical cannabis clinic to start taking appointments. Isn't that beautiful? Scotland's first medical cannabis clinic has been approved by regulators, which must be legislators in Scotland. Everything's got an R, Well, anyway, Sapphire Medical Clinic, based in Stirling, is the first medical cannabis clinic to be approved by healthcare in Scotland. It'll provide safe access to medical cannabis for patients in Scotland. Well, that's great news. It really is. So anyway, due to COVID-19 restrictions, the clinic will initially offer virtual appointments with face-to-face appointments, resuming once lockdown restrictions are lifted. And another thing North Dakota should take to allow you to do it virtually to get your medical card. That'd be nice, I would think. So anyway, you sign up to the free newsletter for the latest Scottish news. Let's see, in 2018, medical cannabis was rescheduled under UK law, allowing doctors to prescribe cannabis-based medicines under circumstances that are certain. Cannabis-based medicines can be considered for a vast range of conditions, including back pain, arthritis, and anxiety, which anxiety, that's a funny one, because you can argue that, anxiety is just a guy who doesn't know how to deal with stress, But I think I create extra stress that ain't nobody in their right mind supposed to, that I got to deal with, that I can reduce a little bit with a little bit of, the devil's lettuce, which I wish we stopped saying it's the devil's lettuce, because I believe that, that it was created by somebody who cares about us. You know what I'm saying? Not the guy who's giggling when we're defeated. But anyway, they're delighted to be the first clinic to be registered, which is a testament to the robust clinical governance framework we have established in evaluating patients for treatments with medical cannabis. And so, well, good for you, Scotland. And let's do one more that's out of our. Let's talk about the UK a little bit. Okay, this is from Vice News. Get out of jail cannabis cards now held by 17,000 people in the UK. Isn't that crazy? A cannabis card scheme which allows people who use the drug medicinally to avoid arrest is now being used by more than 17,000 people across the UK. So, hey, what are you doing, bloke? Oh, I'm nothing. What do you got in your hand, bloke? Cannabis? Well, we're going to have to take... Whoa, hold on, officer. Hold on. I got a cannabis card. You do? Yeah, it's the CAN card, which has been backed by police chiefs, allows patients who are eligible for a medical cannabis prescription to identify themselves to police officers who may otherwise arrest them. Oh, what are you doing back here behind the Empire, bloke? Just nothing. Put your arms behind your back. Wait. Let me pull my CAN card out first. Oh... You got the CAN card, do you, sir? Well, you have yourself a good night, okay? I want one of them. Why does the UK got to have all the fun? So anyway, after the UK legalized potentially life-saving medical cannabis in 2018, resistance from the medical establishment stymied availability. I love saying stymied availability through the health service. This left some police officers in the unenviable position of feeling like they have to punish patients for using unlicensed cannabis without a prescription, as they cannot easily ascertain whether they were using it for health reasons. CAN Card, founded by medical cannabis campaigner and patient Carly Barton, aimed to help redress this situation. Initial figures from the scheme, launched 3 months ago, showed that for 94% of people stopped with the card, it resulted in no further action or just confiscation of medication. People can only get the card following a medical consultation with a health care professional. One CAN card user with MS said he was approached by an officer who asked him what he was vaping. And he says, I'm eating cotton candy, sir. I can see it behind your back. Yeah, you're not eating cotton candy, you're vaping. And I was very anxious, but I explained everything and showed him my card. He said he knew about the card, but he hadn't seen one yet. He liked the style of it. He wished me well and said I shouldn't be so anxious, and the police were there to help. Well, we know that's a lie, right? Hi-yo! DCI Jason Q, Thames Valley Police drug lead, he said that both avoiding arresting people for minor drug offenses and facilitating community resolutions were a key component in turning previously incriminating encounters with officers into positive health outcomes. Policing sometimes finds itself having to innovate, such as in this case when faced with a social inequality, he told Vice World News. Now that is pretty stinking cool, isn't it? A CAN card that I can hurry up and pull out when a cop has given me flack. See, that wouldn't work here. Could you imagine South Dakota trying to give some South Dakota cop your CAN card? Which we're getting to South Dakota here pretty soon, I promise. But South Dakota, they're weaving some weird stuff too. Weird stuff. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Montana as we start moving into our area more proper. Because, well, you know that I talk about the difficulties of passing something if the governments that you're trying to pass it under doesn't have a system set up to absorb it and make money off it. So they just go, no, 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 because they don't know how to deal with that. They know how to deal with drugs and tobacco and domestic disputes. But they don't know how to work this end of their system. And so they don't want to do the extra work, I feel. And so they're coming up with all of this stuff. So let's see here. This is from Leafly, Montana's legalization plan. See, because they voted it in. So that's what I'm trying to get to people. These states have voted it in. It got it on the, they got the ballot initiative like ND for Freedom in North Dakota, cannabis in North Dakota here. They did it in South Dakota. They did it in Montana. They get it through. But they still have all of these things that still need to be dealt with that the government can stall, like THC caps. That's not included in the recreational legalization bill that got passed in Montana. It didn't include THC caps. Well, now they got to talk about it. They got to have coffee about it. They got to come up with a committee. They got to, call in a professional. They got to stick their thumbs in their hindy holes for who knows how long to figure out THC caps. You feel me? That's horrible. So anyway, that's what's happening in Montana, just because they passed it. So anyway, I'll read a little. Turns out Montanans do like big government, at least when it comes to weed. Forced by the will of the voters on Election Day last November, Montana Governor Greg Gianforte released his plan today to implement cannabis legalization in the Republican-controlled state. Okay? He released his plan today to implement something he's not even really into. So, what gets regurgitated out is you see politicians do what they do best that you don't like. Passing the buck, coming up with another reason why, loopholes and stuff to get out of doing what the people wanted. They're geniuses at coming up with a valid reason to not do what you all in a group wanted to do. They're like, are you sure? That's what the government does. Hey, I'd like cannabis legalized. 57% of us got it. I don't like that. Well, okay. I had something cooler to say, but I got all into my theatrics. I don't know what I was talking about. But anyway, here's what Gianforte's plan calls for. Banning home grow, despite voters legalizing 4 plants per person. I'm going to read that one more time. The governor's plan calls for banning home growing, despite voters legalizing 4 plants per person. So despite all your work, despite all your, pro-home grow, are you going to die on that cross? It doesn't even matter. You can stand up and holler about the importance of some things all you want to get people to vote it through, but then they'll still ban it. Now, I don't know how all that stuff works, but it's really frustrating, especially for people. Because when I was working with ND for Freedom and we're getting signatures, everybody's jacked up about how we're, in a nice way about, working together. It had unity and, the outcome would be cannabis legalized and, dealt with in the best way possible, promotion of small businesses, blah, blah, blah. So despite all that, they can ban it. So, that I don't like any of it. I don't want to tell you to just forget the government and take care of yourself and your spiritual health and do what you got to do, playa. And it's getting more and more like that. But anyway, 20% sales tax plus any local tax and fees, a default ban on local sales unless cities opt in. A default ban on local sales unless cities opt in. So if they don't want anything, then they don't get anything. Sales would start in January 2022. Sales would start. That's the wrong word. It should be sales will start, So there's all this stuff. Okay, so let's get into it. Anyway, all is not lost yet. Critics say the bill's glaring flaws, including banning any logos on packaging, isn't that weird? As well as any advertising, could be amended in the Montana House and Senate by May 11. Could be amended. See, that's the thing I didn't even know about, this amended business. Amended business just means they can hold it in transit until they agree with an amended thing. I don't know. It gets me fired up, but I'm just saying, no state government, I suppose if they're Republican, no state government is going to just allow these things to be voted through with the people without amending them and then basically turning them into what they would want them to be. But you did all the work as the person. I do anticipate a lot of amendments in the House, and they're going to shred every one of them when they go to the Senate, says Pepper Peterson, my main homie. Just because I like saying it, let's say it again. Senate amendments are the only amendments that matter, said Pepper Peterson, Legalization Initiative 190 author and CEO of the Montana Cannabis Guild. Hi, I'm Pepper Peterson with Montana Cannabis Guild. Well, hello, Pepper Peterson. Good to see you. But anyway, I do anticipate a lot of amendments, which basically is code for we're not going to let it go through until we approve it. So that's horrible that just a few people can control what the majority of people want. And so it's really kind of sad. And so, I'm a little bummed out that House Bill 1420 didn't make it. But on the other end, Delta 8, that stuff, if you had Delta 8 and a CBD flower and you vape the Delta THC and you got the rest of the stuff from CBD, trust me, I don't even think you wouldn't even care if it was legalized. I'm not so sure about how much the health, but I think it would be just as healthy. Get a full body spectrum and then vape that Delta 8. But anyway, that's all I'm saying. And so to have them remove that, that's really sneaky. For them to come in, how many people knew that they were going to pull Delta 8 from House Bill 1420? Now, you can assume that they were going to still want to be able to fire you for something, that they, want the insurances to pay them a certain amount. If they tell them so many of their employers have been drug tested, then they get a cut on the insurance. Well, this is the same thing. They just want to be able to get that monies that's been promised them by the higher-ups in the government stuff. So anyway, decrim went into effect on January 1st as part of this I-90. Now, I'm not sure really what it is, but following the triumphant November vote, proponents wondered whether the state's anti-pot governor and the prohibitionist legislators would resist the will of the voters, since similar hypocrisy is occurring in Idaho and South Dakota. And that's another thing. South Dakota, it's horrible. Yet despite its flaws, the bills update cannabis law for Montana residents and the 12 million people that visit the state annually. There will be no delay in the implementation of the program per the language in whatever. But there's THC potency caps and no logos allowed. And then you'll be allowed to possess up to 1 ounce of flower, 8 grams of concentrate, and 800 milligrams of edible THC. A bill put forward by a hardcore prohibitionist, Senator David Howard, earlier this year aims to cap all products potency at 15% THC. Instead, the governor proposes a 35% THC cap on flower. Doesn't that just blow your mind? 35% THC flower would scramble your egg, my friend. 2 hits of a 35%, let's say you bong ripped 35% THC flower, it would shatter, it would jaggle your jaggle. Edibles will be capped at 10 milligrams. That's about 100 mg per package. I don't know. You talk to Joey Coco Diaz. He needs 1,000 per package just to get the party started. And I'm not going to lie, 100 milligram should be made in single servings. Am I right? Anyway, the bill calls for severe regulation around packaging. All cannabis must be packaged in simple black and white. Logos will be prohibited. The policy is already raising concerns with logos, images, whatever. The distinguishing marks removed from packaging. Consumers, will no longer have an easy way to find products. So that's all stuff that's, home grow remains in the clear for medical patients, however, but recreational home grow would be prohibited in the plan as well. Prohibited in the plan. That wasn't the plan. Who made the plan? So additionally, the bill calls for a continued ban on all advertising. It's already in place. So, you can see that's some hairy business. So let me just read this because we're getting close to the end. Marijuana moment. White House says Biden. Let me get back to it. White House says Biden hasn't fired staff for marijuana use. That was casual or years ago. As a growing number of Democratic and lawmakers criticize the Biden administration to fire or otherwise punish dozens of staffers who admitted to prior marijuana use, the White House is issuing further clarification in an attempt to tamp down the swelling controversy. Well, there shouldn't be any further clarification. You guys suck. And cannabis use should not keep you from anything. Press Secretary Jen Psaki has previously attempted to minimize the fallout with not much success. So her office released a new statement on Thursday. And it was, no one has been let go due to marijuana usage from years ago. No one has been let go due to casual or infrequent use during the prior 12 months. Well, then what is it? The policy has allowed around a dozen White House staff to continue serving in the admin who would not have been permitted under prior administration policy. So they're saying we're actually cooler. You know, only 5 White House employees have lost their jobs over prior cannabis consumption since Biden took over. However, she consistently declined to speak to the extent to which they had been suspended, blah, 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 blah. But it's still, a bunch of hairy poo-poo. Because, I mean, come on. I don't know why. I mean, and when you look at how few senators in North Dakota voted for, cannabis, it's not so much whether they think it's good or not. It's just they don't know how to make money off it. And that's what sucks. And then once they figure it out, they just are going to figure out how to rape you and, keep everything themselves. So there's got to be a way that North Dakota can create a legalized measure that looks like it is written for the people's benefit, because there's a way that it can be done, and medical for sure should have homegrown amended to it. So anyway, South Dakota governor floats marijuana decrim as part of a medical cannabis compromise. This stuff gets me so fired up. I don't even know what's going on. All I do know is South Dakota voted in medical and recreational. The people did. And now one of them's not happening, but it might happen. And the other one it's crazy. So Google South Dakota and cannabis, and if you want to get fired up. But anyway, the governor of South Dakota is looking to strike a deal with the legislator over plans to implement a medical marijuana program in the state, but advocates feel a reform proposal she's floating doesn't go far enough. See, why is she implementing a medical marijuana program in the state? What is she talking about? They already passed one. So implement what they passed. I don't get it. South Dakota voters approved separate ballot initiatives to legalize cannabis for medical and recreational use in November, despite Christie's opposition to the policy change. The adult use measure was struck down by a judge last month following challenges over constitutionality. But the medical marijuana initiative is set to go in effect on July 1st. However, Nome tried to get the legislator to approve a delay for an additional year. But while it cleared the House, negotiators were unable to reach an agreement in the Senate, so it stayed. So now she's seeking a compromise. A one proposal out of her admin that's being considered would decrim up to an ounce, limit the number of plants that patients could cultivate to 3, and prohibit people under 21 from qualifying for medical marijuana, which is stupid. Medical marijuana should be available to anybody, 6-month-old. I mean, if there's symptoms that can be abated and, the quality of life can move on, man, stick it in their bottle. That's all I'm saying. Administration official told the Argus leader that the governor hasn't necessarily endorsed this measure. Of course not. That, why would a politician stand on something and then not move from it? You know what I mean? Of course she's not necessarily endorsed it. She don't know if it necessarily is for her benefit to endorse it. She's got to ask her people. Under the bill, possession of up to 1 ounce would be considered a petty fine that would not carry the threat of jail time. Any additional, and that's the thing. Why are we reading this stuff? They've already passed and voted medical and recreational. But here's the government coming up with all this stuff. All this stuff. They're circulating a counter-proposal that would put the plant limit to 6, extend the decrim policy to people under 21, and then remove a provision that makes it so possession of any amount of marijuana can be used as grounds for a police search. So I'm telling you, this is crazy. It really is. And Nome was not a named plaintiff in the case, but the law enforcement officers that brought the case were acting on her behalf. So boo on Christie, don't know. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Every Thursday, 4:20, I open a big fat bag of cannabis news, and this is no different. If you were here, then you know. KRFF 95.9 LPFM is what you're listening to on this beautiful day if you're in Fargo. This hour of programming on KRFF 95.9 LPFM is being underwritten by S&S Incorporated. S&S works one-on-one with you to provide personal business tax preparation, accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll services. Schedule your appointment with them at their West Fargo offices, located at 45th 8th Street East, Suite 105, or visit them online at facebook.com/S&S Incorporated for more information. Check out S&S Incorporated for all your tax preparation and accounting needs. So, Canna-Talk ND minus the music tomorrow on YouTube. Philip Cannahead Pilko does Canna Heads on Sunday. Check that out. And again, go to my Canna-Talk ND on Facebook. I posted the senators that voted yea or nay on House Bill 1420, and then I'll keep you posted on the decrim that should be happening next week. And next Thursday, I'll be in here, and you know I will be, April Fool's Day. Working April Fools. Here's Fine Line, Oliver Wood. Brand new. This stuff's all new coming up. So let's see. Fine Line, Oliver Wood, and then Genesis Owusu. Genesis Owusu. Smiling with No Teeth. That's the album that's from. No Looking Back, and then brand new Oliver Wood, Fine Line. All, like I said, brand new music. Well, this is it. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday. I get in at 4 o'clock. 4:20, Bag of Cannabis News gets open, and that's been done. So now I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day, and I hope everybody else does too. I'm going to come back here, of course, next Thursday, 4 o'clock. So you can be sure that I'll be here to talk about cannabis in a positive light and the progress of legalization as it applies to our state and then others outside of it. So Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana are all in the news for stuff that's not people driven, but as a result of. You know, Montana got through and voted through, but it's being caught up, hung up in the courts. South Dakota got it passed. It's being hung up in the courts. And now Minnesota's moving its way through the committees to potentially get hung up in court. So it doesn't seem like anything that happens very quick, and I don't love that. But anyway, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Going to keep you up to date regardless. And educate yourself so you can educate others on cannabis. And House Bill 1420 got shot down in the Senate, so there's no longer any legislated cannabis legalization. The only thing out there is stinking Canna-Talk ND for Freedom of Cannabis Act, which is at Tochi Products, which you can also go and get Black Cottage Alchemy, Becky's Body Butter, which this show is being brought to you by. Up next is Stinky Art Music Mart, Radio Free Fargo 95.9. And I'm out of here, David Allen, Judgment Day. Peace.